So continuing from the previous part where we had discussed in detail about the different parts of the female reproductive system, their structures, the locations followed by their functions. And we had discussed in detail about the histological structure of the ovaries, okay, followed by a complete understanding of the menstrual cycle based on its physiology, the hormones involved, and what are the different practical considerations, okay, the various myths and misconceptions with respect to the menstrual periods, okay, and we had seen the structure of the female gamete also. So you should remember that we are calling the female gamete as the secondary oocyte, the one which is released during ovulation. Okay, the correct word is not the ovum, it is the secondary oocyte. Okay, so after understanding all the parts of the male and the female reproductive system and the respective gametes, okay, we have seen the structure of the sperm, the structure of the ovum, the position of all the parts in the reproductive systems. The next thing that we have to discuss is about the fertilization. Okay, so when it comes to fertilization in human beings, the actual meaning of the word fertilization is where one male gamete fuses with a female gamete and produces a zygote. Okay, so in case of human beings also, I had mentioned last time, the site of fertilization are the fallopian tubes. Okay, above the uterus on both the sides, laterally there are two tubes which are present. We call them as the fallopian tubes or the oviducts. That is where the ovum is, what you can say, ovum reaches the secondary oocyte after being caught by the fimbriae. Okay, and in that fallopian tube itself, the sperms also reach. Okay, so what happens is there is a process called coitus or the sexual intercourse which takes place, in which after the erect penis is inserted into the vagina, there is a deposition of the semen at the other end of the cervix, and that semen contains the sperms. So as soon as the semen lands on the cervix, all the sperms will first start swimming, okay, after the ejaculation is done. Okay, Sundar, you are not seen on the screen. The sperms will start swimming. We have seen the structure of the sperm. It has got a long tail, and there is one middle cell or middle piece of the sperm which contains the mitochondria. And because of the mitochondria, it produces the energy, and the tail with its lashing movement will start swimming. Okay, so once it starts swimming from the this one cervix onwards, from the cervix onwards, it will start swimming upwards into the uterus. Okay, and here it's like as soon as the semen lands on the cervix, first of all, there are secretions from the Bartholin's glands, and on the uterus also there are certain secretions present. They help in the sperms in pulling them inside the uterus. Okay, so those secretions are also useful, but at the same time there are 200 to 400 million sperms present. So during the ejaculation, due to various reasons, the sperms are, many of the sperms are just killed. Okay, out of them, thousands of sperms are simply killed, and a few of them, they start swimming from the cervix to the uterus. Okay, and that's why during the process of sexual intercourse also it is said that lubrication is a must. When there is lubrication, there is a good chance that a good number of sperms will be able to enter the uterus and start swimming. So from the lower end of the uterus to the upper end of the uterus, the sperms will start swimming, and then there are two ways, two fallopian tubes. So now sperms don't know in which of the fallopian tubes the secondary oocyte is present, because when there are two ovaries, any one ovary at a time in a month will produce the secondary oocyte. It can be either the left ovary or the right ovary. And that is simply by chance occurrence, you can say. Okay. So in such a situation, some of the sperms will go towards the left side, some other sperms will go towards the right side. So the ones which go to that side of the fallopian tube where there is no secondary oocyte, they simply perish. Okay, but the ones which will go to the other side of the fallopian tube where it is in the right timing, suppose, according to the menstrual cycle, if it is in the right phase, where the secondary oocyte is present in the fallopian tube and the corpus luteum is functional in the ovary. In such a situation, if the sexual intercourse takes place, the female gamete is ready. Okay, those who joined late, I hope you remember, we had seen the structure of the female gamete last time, the secondary oocyte. You remember the different layers. We are talking about the process of fertilization right now. Okay, all of you remain on the screen, everyone. Okay, so during that process, ultimately what happens is, out of the millions of sperms that are reaching, a very few number, maybe in a few hundreds something, they actually reach the secondary oocyte. Okay, some of them, they in between they cannot start continue swimming. Sometimes they physically lose their tail. Many reasons can happen. So the final number which reaches is somewhere around hundreds or maybe a few thousands if they are very healthy. Okay, so the ovum is, the secondary oocyte is circular, spherical one. All the sperms which reach over here will surround them. And each one of them is now trying to enter the secondary oocyte. Okay, but the secondary oocyte or the female gamete is only one. So for one female gamete, how many sperms should be able to enter? Can it be more than one? Do you think so? Is it possible that for one female gamete, more than one male gamete can enter? It cannot be possible, right? Because ideally in sexual reproduction, there is only one male gamete and one female gamete. Getting it? Okay. So here, when there is a large number of sperms which are surrounding the secondary oocyte, that is where again there is competition. Okay. And for the secondary oocyte, one more thing which happens over here. There is a process which is called capacitation. Okay, capacitation ka matlab, it's like this process is between a male and a female gamete, and the male gamete has come from some other body, some other individual. So it is the responsibility of the female gamete to ensure that the male gamete which has reached belongs to the same species or not. Of course, in human beings, it cannot be from other species. Okay, but nature has devised this process, something called capacitation, in which the female gamete will produce a compound which will be compatible with only the male gamete of that species. It's like an identity card. As soon as the sperm is reaching over there, the ovum is asking, show your ID card. Okay, are you belonging to Homo sapiens only or not? So once that confirmation is done, usko capacitation bolte. Once that confirmation is done, then the sperm will try to enter. It is because in evolution also we have seen something called reproductive isolation, where nature does not prefer random hybrids between any two species. Otherwise, there will be total chaos in the nature. Correct? कि कोई भी एक species दूसरे किसी भी species के साथ breed नहीं कर सकते. Otherwise, there will be total chaos and confusion. Random hybrids cannot be allowed. Correct? So species integrity should be maintained. वो इस level पे maintain by confirming before the entry. This happens even in the case of plants. Okay, as soon as the pollen grain lands on the stigma, first there will be pollen pistil interaction. जिसमें confirm होगा कि the pollen which has landed belongs to the same species or not. because fire, wind or water, any species pollen grain can land on any stigma, but ऐसे hybrid बनते नहीं. So these reactions are very important. Okay, so the conformation and all is done. The sperms are surrounding this secondary oocyte, and then what happens is one by one. See, quickly taking a look at the structure, you know very well the secondary oocyte has got one haploid nucleus, and there is one polar body which is a reduced nucleus, and the cytoplasm inside this is known as the ooplasm. It is nothing but a cytoplasm, but oocyte में है इसलिए ooplasm. Okay, and the ooplasm is immediately surrounded by a plasma membrane which is called the oolemma. Whenever the word is lemma, remember it is a membrane. Okay, so when you say oolemma, it is the membrane around the cytoplasm or the ooplasm. That membrane or the oolemma is also known as the is also known as the vitelline membrane. यहाँ पे जो word दिख रहा है vitelline, that is the word given to the oolemma, vitelline membrane. Okay, after the vitelline membrane, ये जो orange वाला दिख रहा है, the green one is the vitelline membrane. Okay, that orange one which is surrounding, the thicker one, that is called as the zona pellucida. It's a thicker wall-like layer. Okay, थोड़ा मजबूत रहता है. And then it is surrounded by small few cells. ये सब layers हैं, vitelline membrane and zona pellucida. But the third and the outermost one, they are different cells altogether. Okay, so ये जो सारे cells present हैं, उसको बोलते हैं cumulus cells, also called the corona radiata. ये उन cells के नाम है. Last time also we had mentioned it, right? So this way the sperms will come and try to enter. अभी sperm के लिए challenge क्या है कि they have to cross 3 different layers, and then the male nucleus will be able to meet the female nucleus. तो सबसे पहले sperm को पार करना है corona radiata. After that it has to enter zona pellucida, followed by vitelline membrane. ये तीनों अगर बराबर पार करके निकल गया, then the male gamete will be able to meet the female gamete. So one by one the sperm will be able to cross it. तो पहले क्या होगा? There will be acrosome reaction. If you remember the structure of the sperm, there was a head followed by a small neck, a middle piece and a long tail. Sperm का structure है. Okay, so in that head there is the the head is obviously the most important part, which contains the haploid male nucleus with 23 chromosomes. Okay, that nucleus in the head region is to be very well protected, for which there was a covering called acrosome. So the sperms, as you have seen, had to travel a long distance right from the place in the testis where they are manufactured. Okay, तो वहां से मैन्युफैक्चर करके यहाँ तक उसको ट्रैवल करके आना है, तो it has to be well protected by the acrosome. So considering an ideal sperm which has reached over here, a proper healthy sperm, तो सबसे पहले क्या करेगा? These corona radiata cells, they are cells, individual cells. They are stuck to each other by a compound which is called hyaluronic acid. I'll write the name over here. These corona radiata cells are stuck to each other by a compound called as hyaluronic acid. Okay, so chipke hue, it's like a gum which is keeping those cells stuck. So sperm ka acrosome, what it will do? It will produce an enzyme which is known as hyaluronidase. Okay, ये enzyme जो sperm का acrosome produce कर रहा है, that will destroy this hyaluronic acid or degrade this hyaluronic acid, and at that point the corona radiata cells will separate. As you can see here, ये cells जो है वो separate हो गए. तो sperm का head एक layer अंदर आ गया. Okay, that is known as the acrosome reaction. So corona radiata cells are separated so that the sperm head will enter. First layer is crossed. Okay, अब next कौन सा आ रहा है? Zona pellucida. That's a thick one. Okay, so for the zona pellucida, what happens is again the sperm will produce an enzyme which is known as zonalysin. It will produce an enzyme called zonalysin. जिसके वजह से at that point the wall, the zona pellucida will slightly dissolve and the sperm head can enter. So you can see here zona pellucida penetration. Okay, now in the beginning we had said that the female gamete is actually the secondary oocyte. Okay, till this stage, till the time the sperm head enters the corona radiata, it remains as secondary oocyte. As soon as one of the sperms enters the zona pellucida, it is like that sperm is the winner. Okay, around the secondary oocyte, there are hundreds of sperms which are surrounding it. But nature has made it a rule that only one gamete will enter the female gamete. More than one gamete can never enter. It's like a competition. So the sperm which reaches first is the winner. So for the corona radiata, many sperms are able to cross it. But the one who crosses the zona pellucida first is the actual winner. So जैसे ही zona pellucida पार हो गया, secondary oocyte will undergo one more division. And now it is known as the ovum. Okay, secondary oocyte जो पहले था, as soon as one of the sperms will enter the zona pellucida, it will undergo one more division and then it is now called as the ovum. Okay, so second zona pellucida पार हो गया, two layers are crossed. After this, the middle piece and the tail of the sperm, now they don't enter because they are not required. Only the nucleus has to enter. पूरा luggage लेके कहाँ अंदर? Correct. So it is only the head and the nucleus. So zona pellucida के बाद the third layer is the vitelline membrane. तो vitelline membrane के लिए क्या करते हैं? Sperm के head का nucleus, head का जो cell है, वो membrane and the vitelline membrane they fuse. And the male nucleus is directly inside the ooplasm. So ultimate requirement क्या है कि male nucleus in the head region must meet the female nucleus in the ooplasm. So vitelline membrane only fuses, male nucleus enters, and ultimately it is followed by fusing of the 23 chromosomes of male and female. And simultaneously क्या होता है कि zona pellucida, which was the thickest of the three layers, that becomes much more thicker. And उसको बोलते हैं fertilization membrane. As soon as one of the sperm enters successfully, the zona pellucida will become more thick. It is called the fertilization membrane. And why it is necessary? Because other sperm should not enter once this is over. When the zona pellucida becomes a thick one and becomes the fertilization membrane, it is like a message to all the other sperms, better luck next time. Getting it? Of course, for these sperms, there is no next time. Next time would be other sperms. Okay, but that's like a message. Ki one sperm has already entered, he is the winner, others are lost. You can imagine out of 200 to 400 million sperms, the ultimate hero is only one. The one which has entered and fertilized. And अब जो ovum है, in which the fertilization has taken place, that is now called the zygote. Okay, and this zygote is now, जो ovum था, जो sperm था, they were haploid, but now the zygote is the diploid cell, and this diploid cell is the first cell of the new human being. So every person on the earth begins their life as this zygote. That is the first cell of a new life. And all these things, where it is happening in the fallopian tubes. Okay, understood the process of fertilization properly?
Yes.
Any doubts, everyone? Dipali, Ishika, be on the screen. No doubt about fertilization, everyone?
No doubt, sir.
Okay, so once the fertilization is over, okay, now in the fallopian tube, the zygote is ready. Simultaneously in the ovary, the message has been received that the ovum which was released is fertilized. So corpus luteum which was formed, now it has to remain, because that corpus luteum is producing the hormone called progesterone, which is called the pregnancy hormone. So now that has to be maintained, because when the zygote is formed, it's like the female is said to be conceived. And now this female will have to bear the 9 months of pregnancy. From this diploid zygote, the entire new individual has to be formed till the time the baby, fully formed baby, is delivered out of the body. And till that entire time, approximately 9 months from here, there won't be any menstrual cycle. Corpus luteum will be maintained. Okay, progesterone hormone will be released, and uterus will be the one where this zygote will ultimately develop into the fetus. So the menstrual cycle will temporarily stop at this phase. And approximately for 1 year, pregnancy followed by delivery, followed by next 2-3 months, there won't be any menstrual cycle. That's again a very important point to be remembered. Okay, so now the next part that we have to see, after this, from this diploid zygote, how entirely a new human being is produced and how the child delivery process takes place. Correct? So see here, at this point of time, when the sperm is meeting the ovum, in this fertilization, there is one more thing that happens, and that is the sex determination. Okay, this is again a very important point to be remembered. What is the meaning of sex determination? How it is decided that the child which is going to be born will be a boy or a girl. It is at this point of time during fertilization, this is decided. Okay, see here. You know very well that in the case of males, okay, you know very well, in every human being, in its cells, there are totally 46 chromosomes. That is our diploid number. Every human being, a normal human being, has got 46 chromosomes. Okay, out of the 46, okay, first pay attention to this. Out of the 46, the 44 chromosomes are known as autosomes, or the body chromosomes, or the somatic chromosomes. And the remaining 2 chromosomes are known as the allosomes, or the sex chromosomes. These 44 chromosomes contain genes which are responsible for giving rise to characters which are common for males and females. You know very well, chromosomes contain genes. Genes code for certain characters. So if we are talking about a character like, say, color of the skin, so there's nothing like males have a certain color and females have a certain color. Color of the skin is irrespective of the sex. Okay. Similarly, height of the individual, no correlation with sex as such. The type of the hair, the color of the eyes, these are all general body characters. So such genes are located on the 44 chromosomes, that is autosomes. The remaining 2 chromosomes, they are like, in the case of males, the sex chromosomes are X and Y. And in females, the sex chromosomes are X and X. So one X chromosome is again common between both the genders. Females have a double dose of X chromosome. Males have another separate chromosome called Y. It is only because of more than half of this Y chromosome that there are males on the earth. Remaining is dominated by females, X chromosome. Okay, so all those characters which are restricted to only a particular sex, they are present on X or the Y chromosome. So the gene responsible for giving rise to beard and mustache, they are present on the Y chromosome. That's why only males get that feature. Okay, the gene responsible for development of the breasts after puberty, that is present only in the X chromosome. That's why only females get that property. So such characteristics which are restricted to only particular sex, they are present on either the X or the Y chromosome. Is it clear, everyone? Okay, so what happens is, out of these 44 chromosomes, they during gamete formation divide equally, 22 and 22. Okay, based on that, now you have to understand how the sex is determined. Okay, see this. In case of males, there are sperms. So sperms which are produced are of 2 types. Remember, 2 types, not 2 sperms. Okay, we have seen there are 200 to 400 million sperms. All of them are of 2 types. They are either 50% of them will have 22 plus X, and the remaining 50% will have 22 plus Y. You understood how they are separated? 44 ka ho gaya 22. Okay, and XY, 50% has got the X, remaining 50% has got the Y. So the sperm containing the X chromosome, usko gynosperm bolte hain. And the sperm containing the Y chromosome is called androsperm. Okay, so there is a gynosperm and an androsperm, 2 types. So what happens is, females, when the oocytes are produced and the ovum is produced, because it is 44 plus XX. So when the segregation takes place and the gametes are produced, it is only of 1 type. That is 22 plus X. There is no other type. Okay, so female gamete ultimately is only 1 type. Male gametes are of 2 types. Now during fertilization, hundreds of sperms are reaching the ovum, all are trying to enter. Any one sperm will enter successfully, as we have seen. So it can be either a gynosperm or an androsperm. So if a gynosperm enters successfully, fuses with the ovum, so it's like 22 plus 22 giving you 44, and X giving you XX. So agar wo gynosperm ne fertilize kiya successfully, then the child which will be born will be a girl child. Similarly, if an androsperm, the sperm containing the Y chromosome, successfully fertilizes the ovum, then it is 44 plus XY. That means there is a boy child which is born. Did you understand this? So whether the child born will be a boy or a girl is determined by what? Which sperm fuses with the ovum. It doesn't depend upon the ovum at all. Ovum तो एक ही type का है, correct? So any sperm can fuse and then decide, and ये decision कब होता है? During fertilization itself. After fertilization, once the zygote is formed, after that the sex of the child cannot be changed. So now you can understand, when there is no scientific awareness of this type, you know what is happening in the society. When the females, they are tortured if she gives birth to only girl child. There is a more desire for a boy child. ये सब सुना होगा, especially in the people who are not scientifically aware. तो फीमेल अगर बहुत सारे गर्ल चिल्ड्रन को जन्म देती है तो उसको ही डांट पड़ता है, उसको ही टॉर्चर किया जाता है, बोलते यू कैन नॉट गिव बर्थ टू अ बॉय चाइल्ड और व्हाट. बट अकॉर्डिंग टू दिस, it is no responsibility of the female, it is the sperm which decides, correct? So it has to be the man who is to be tortured. I mean, not exactly, but he matlab you are the one who is not giving the correct sperm, correct? And that's why this can be a very important give reason question. The sex of the child is determined by the father and not the mother. So you have to make a flow chart like this and give the explanation. Is that clear? Understood how the sex of the child is determined properly? Okay.
Yes.
So here in this session, what we have discussed, first we have seen how during sexual intercourse, what happens, where the semen is ejaculated, how the sperm starts swimming, where they reach, and simultaneously at that time in the fallopian tube, the secondary oocyte has reached. The sperms meet the secondary oocyte, followed by fertilization. The entire process of fertilization we have discussed. That leads to the formation of the zygote in the fallopian tube. And it is at this point of time, it is decided what will be the sex of the child which is born. So how the sex is determined, that also we have seen at the chromosome level. So remember those key terms, that sex determination in human being is very, very important part. Any queries till now properly understood? Everybody?
Yes.
Ishika, understood clearly? Sundar, Abhirami?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So